And my guest this week in our Newsmaker segment is Jim Amann, who is the former State House Speaker, and he is the first candidate to officially jump into the 2010 gubernatorial race. And before we begin, folks, I want to tell you, you probably see that Jim has two mugs of liquid with him. We want to tell you that's warm tea. He's not a two-fisted drinker, or he may be, but at least on a program like this, he's not going to be. And Jim's voice is pretty raspy this week, too, as a result of surgery that you had a few years ago. You kind of struggle with your voice sometimes, and it's really doing it for you this week. But let's see how it goes. I was going to say I'm not going to be too hard on you, but I can't make that promise.
Okay, Steve,
okay?
that's okay.
First off, why did you decide, after all your years in the legislature, to run for governor? And as I said, you're the first guy out there officially jumping in this week. Why now, and why are you in the race?
Thank you, Steve. I've had, I thought about it for a long period of time, and I really believe in my heart that I have a lot more still to offer the state of Connecticut. I've had a real strong record most of my career, and I want to continue to share that with the people of Connecticut, whether it be in my ideas for job creation or energize Connecticut. Those are the sort of issues I want to talk to the people of Connecticut.
But is it necessary to jump into it at this stage of the game? Because the other people that are running, Susan Bysewicz and Daniel Malloy, the mayor of Stamford, and Bysewicz is the Secretary of State, they have exploratory committees out there. For that matter, so does Governor Rell. None of those folks has really said, yo, I'm in it 100% at this point.
Well, if you look at the Quinnipiac Poll, 79% of the people of Connecticut don't know enough about me. So there's I have no choice but to get out there early and to talk to the people, because I believe once they hear my agenda, they will be very supportive of it if I can, they can understand my agenda.
If you can ever get your voice back.
Yes, Steve.
Well, you bring up the Quinnipiac poll. Let me ask you about that, because we were sort of joking in our headlines that some politicians in this state did very well in the Q poll. Governor Rell with a 75% job approval rating, and Attorney General even higher at 79%. Chris Dodd and Senator Lieberman not so much, as I said. But that Q poll matched up Governor Rell against each of the Democratic candidates, you, Malloy, and Bysewicz. And in that poll, Rell beats you by 41 percentage points. That's pretty heavy. And also, when they just asked Democratic voters who they support, only 4% said they were ready to support you. So, I mean, those sounds like pretty dire numbers early on.
President Obama wasn't really well known 2 or 3 years ago. And please, public, I am not comparing myself to President Obama. But if you think about that, the 21% actually I think is pretty good. The reason being is I've never run a statewide campaign. Susan Bysewicz has been out there for 14 years on a statewide basis. And also, Dan Malloy ran 2 years ago on statewide. So in all, I think the 21% tells me that if I can convince some more of the 79% that don't know me very well, that I have a pretty good shot at doing this. And let's not forget, it's very, very early in the campaign. And the last part is, I still don't believe Governor Rell runs. And I think if Governor Rell doesn't run, out of all the 3 candidates, I'll have the best shot of picking up her votes.
Well, I want to ask you about that in a minute, but let me also ask you about, again, you said you haven't run for statewide office before. Also, the track record of legislative leaders running for governor is not very good. I mean, I tried to write an article once a few years ago about someone who was actually in a legislative leadership post and running for governor and whether or not they would succeed. I really couldn't find anybody. I know that it is a little bit ironic that when you are a legislative leader, you feel, hey, I know the ins and outs of state government as well as the governor does, and I could certainly take over that job. But in the public mindset, the voters' mindset, they don't seem to equate that with gubernatorial aspirations or whatever, and there aren't legislative leaders who have been elected to governor. So what about that?
And that's one of the reasons why I didn't run for speaker again, because I did see the track record, and every other speaker or leader that tried it, except for Governor O'Neill, who I believe was a majority leader.
He was, but Governor O'Neill was thrust into the job on the death of Ella Grasso, so he wasn't elected governor.
That's true. But the bottom line is, I felt that if I had a chance, I needed to separate myself from my past, which I've been becoming a speaker I was very proud of, and then coming out now and trying to be a candidate for governor. I think the mistake is that leaders have tried to continue to be leaders and run at the same time. We'll see what happens in the next couple of years, if I'm right or if I'm wrong, but I think I have a good message, and so far for the people I have talked to, it seems to be connecting.
But you do make a point. If you're not speaker, and this could be a tough year, if you were still a lawmaker right now and trying to run for governor in this year when you have such a desperate budget situation that's going to take a lot of time, you're essentially free to be a candidate full-time now.
True. And it's been, you know, part of me, Steve, I wish I was still involved in the legislature because I think I have a lot of ideas that I want to share and help. But I also know it's not my job anymore. We have a new speaker. If he needs my advice, he'll call. But I'll be out there talking about my agenda, what I hope to do for the citizens of Connecticut to better their lives, and I think I have a strong message.
You said you're not working there anymore, but you almost were working there.
Yes,
and that's another issue that you're going to have to deal with, and that is, it seems that for one reason or another, controversy has dogged you. What I'm talking about most recently is that you were going to take a $120,000 a year post to be sort of a senior advisor to the new House Speaker. And that kind of erupted into a lot of publicity about how in this day and age can you do that. Also, how could you be a candidate for governor and hold that post. But even prior to that, there were questions in the past about your fundraising activities. So, you know, this is the post-Rowland era in Connecticut when everybody is looked at kind of with a fine-tooth comb, if you will. And so can you, as a gubernatorial candidate, get past that idea that you're somehow controversy surrounds you?
Steve, let's think about it. First of all, the three people that started this controversy about me working for multiple sclerosis, that's my job. I left a job from an engineering firm, took half the pay to work for MS, because I believe in helping families that have it. The three gentlemen that attacked me on it, the head of the ethics, the chairman of the Republican Party, and a former news reporter. Two of those three had their own issues. One that was arrested for his third DWI. The other one has been run out of town, the ethics chief. I work for multiple sclerosis. I've never shied away from that. Helping people. I had cancer. My wife had a kidney transplant. I help people with MS. And if people think that's controversial, that I want to raise money to help those people, God bless them, throw bricks at me. I'm very conscious of looking myself in the mirror and being proud of what I do. Anybody will see that my experience as Speaker of the House, when you look at the Speaker's surrounding staff, they are a very green team. They've never been through a budget process. I've been through 6. I would have added a lot to the Speaker. But let's clear this up. The Speaker of the House asked me if I wanted to work for him. How many people like Cappiello that now works for state government?
This is Senator David Cappiello, who ran for Congress.
Former Minority Leader Bob Ward, former Representative Pirelli, Governor Rell's son. We can go on and on. There's 23 former reps that work for the state government now, and there was no controversy there. I think I would have been an asset to the new Speaker. I have a great work ethic. I worked 2 jobs all my life, 25 years, ran 106 campaigns, ran as Speaker of the House, worked as Speaker of the House, and still held my job. So the critics will be there. But as far as I'm concerned, I heard what the people said, and they didn't accept the job. And I think that, quite frankly, is a loss to the state of Connecticut.
Okay. Let me ask you about something you said a minute ago, and I think I've talked to you before about this. You're convinced that Governor Rell is not going to run again next year. So that, obviously, you take somebody that popular out of the race, it changes the whole dynamic. Is that wishful thinking on your part, or why do you believe that?
No, first of all, I was right about Blumenthal, wasn't I? nobody, including Malloy, including one of the biggest campaign manager, or the Secretary of State that said she wanted to be a running mate of his, or whatever she wanted to be, whatever the ambition is. I was right. So I'm 50-50 right now. I do not believe Governor Rell runs again. Listen, contrary to what people believe, the governor and I have a nice one-on-one relationship. I have my differences with the governor. She is a very wonderful person. It's hard to dislike. There's no doubt about that. But that doesn't make having a popularity of that degree does not make her necessarily a great leader. And I've had my differences there. I think she's reactionary. I think she could be a lot more bold with that. In fact, I've tried to encourage the governor that with that popularity, which I don't have, I wish that she would use it more. I'd support her more to do the things that we need to do in the state of Connecticut. But, if I'm the Governor Rell and I look at my numbers, and if that's all that matters to me, there's no need to be bold. There's no need to be a risk taker.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Do what you're doing. Listen to your chief of staff and go cut the ribbons, do what you have to do, and make people happy. I think there's more to government than that.
All right,
Sometimes tough decisions have to be made.
Let me ask you about that in terms of tough decisions, because the budget crisis that the state is in right now is probably the worst they've ever had. Budget deficit this year over $1 billion probably, yes. $6 to $10 billion for the next 2-year cycle, depending on who you want to believe. If you were governor right now, or maybe if you were governor in 2010 or 11, because the crisis could still be going on then, how would you be handling the deficit crisis differently? What would you be doing to get rid of that deficit?
Well, the governor and the legislature are not to blame for what's happening in Connecticut. Let's make that quite clear. Already I see blame game, people pointing at each other. This is a national, actually a global problem in what's happening all over the world. So we need to understand what the basics are. I have a little speech that I've been going around the state, is capitalism dead? I don't believe it is. The problem is we should put down the newspapers and turn off the TVs for a while and understand that bad businesses should go out of business and good businesses will take their place. It might take time. The best stimulus package we have is creating jobs. I proved that in many ways. I've created win-win situations my whole career. One prime example is digital media, creating a new industry in the state of Connecticut. Broadband, exactly what President Obama is talking about. We've created 1,450 jobs in less than 3 years in what we call Hollywood East. We had a company come from New York to Connecticut, creating 300 jobs, good paying $65 million payroll jobs with 60 openings in this economy. The green economy that we talk about, it needs to be more than talk about solar, talking about wind, talking about fuel cell. How do we get the businesses here? How do we turn our educational workforce here in Connecticut and creating those new opportunities? It's not brain surgery, Steve. We can do it by being competitive, by offering either incentives or give people, as the governor did with regionalism. She knows that the only way regionalism works is by making incentives for people to cooperate. I totally agree with the governor on that, but we should do it with all our businesses too. Delaware, my last point. Delaware is the corporation capital of the world. It's not brain surgery what they've done. They've changed the tax code that makes people welcome that are business and entrepreneurs to come to their state. We can do the same thing in Connecticut, especially where we're being between New York and Boston. I've proven it as a leader. I've created jobs my 25 years as a leader, and I want to continue to do that as a governor.
You had a quote the other day. You said, "We've chosen nominees in the Democratic Party who could not win the office." And so that more or less says you feel you're a different kind of Democrat. Are you saying that the Democratic Party, in your view, has been too liberal in who they've put out there?
No. I think what I'm trying to say is that our party is very diverse. And if you think about it, we are a party of Democrats that are liberal, moderate, and conservative. How did Jim Amann become Speaker of the House? 2/3 of my body are liberal Democrats. But they had the faith in me that I at least listened to them. that I understand that we have to do things together. My whole administration has been from the bottom up, not from leadership down. We've done it as a team. I do the same thing as my old Democratic Party around our state. But the reality is, if you look at our candidates that won, or I'd say all the candidates that won in the last 20 years, Bill O'Neill, moderate. Weicker, moderate. Rowland, moderate. And also Jody Rell. We are a moderate state when it comes to our leaders. So the only way we can win is from a centrist position.
Well, let me
if
ask
we
you
haven't learned that lesson,
let me ask you though.
Then 4 years from now, we'll be having the same
party,
debate.
you're going to have to win a primary to do this,
Yes.
and primary voters tend to be more liberal voters. You backed Joe Lieberman in that controversial 2006 U.S. Senate race, and within the state of Connecticut, a lot of Democrats are still angry at Joe Lieberman. I don't think he'd probably be able to get the Senate nomination again here. Do you think that that could backfire on you? Do you think that those Democrats are going to be angry at you for backing Lieberman?
And again, exactly to my point, our strength is our diversity in our party, and our weakness is our division. Joe Lieberman won in my hometown, Milford. He had the biggest Democratic vote, 56%, out of anywhere else in the state. I represent Milford. I listen to my constituents. That's what we're supposed to do as legislators. If our party's going to continue to be mad at fellow Democrats, such as the firefighters, carpenters, ironworkers, many other groups, you know, we're not going to go anywhere. That's behind us. Believe me, Steve. Joe Lieberman would be my friend to the day I die.
Okay.
But even I was very surprised at what he did. And if I had a crystal ball and knew that he would stand up at the GOP with McCain, I would not have done what I did.
Right.
I did it because of the Joe Lieberman that I've known for 25 years.
We're going to have to leave it there. Jim, thanks very much for being with us today.